10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here we go indeed, Leslie. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Through Black and White Eyes again. I have got a very special guest, Roger Tames. I'm really looking forward to doing this show with him. I spoke to him at a Newcastle Benfield Football Club sports dinner. He was the compare that night, talking to Chris Waddle and Kenny Wharton, and he did an amazing job. And I thought, do you know what it is? I would love to speak to him. And then I took my shot, and he emailed me, and I was just like, no way, get in. And he decided to come on. So this is going to be great. We'll get through the formalities and then we'll bring him in. So even all, welcome to Roger. Please adhere to standard community guidelines, keep comments respectful and enjoy the show. Please like and share, subscribe, promote the channel. It's free. Join from 99p if you want to. Donate using the super chat at the bottom left-hand corner. All profits are donated to charity. And just to give you a running idea where we are, £8,232.84 in the last 3 years. So we're doing well, guys. So thank you to everyone who donates and helps us to fulfill that. Gary's in the house, and another Gary Devlin's in the house. Evening. Choppy's in the house as well. Hello to everyone. But we know why we're here. We want to talk to Roger. We don't want to be listening to me. So let's bring him in. Good evening, Roger.
Good evening. How are you?
Yes, very good. I've just done a 12-hour shift cleaning a chocolate factory. This is all I've been thinking about all day, is doing this show. It's got me through the day.
Flatterer.
I love it. So before we get into the nitty-gritty stuff, first of all, thank you for so much for coming on and doing this. And because you are, we would like to donate £50 to your chosen charity. We'll do that at the end of the month when we get our money from YouTube. So if you can tell me what the charity is, we will do that.
I can tell you straight off the top of my head.
Yeah, please.
It's the charity that I am chair of, which is Sport Newcastle. And that is a grassroots sports charity that's been going for more than 50 years. And our job is to help young athletes, clubs, coaches, events at the grassroots of the sport. Often it's always small grants. If we made £1,000, that would be a massive grant to us. A lot of our grants are between 250 and 500, and we help individuals, youngsters, with possibly their first grants and put them on the road to success. And even if they don't get success, we hope that it's just given them something more worthwhile to do while they are young teenagers or the like. Particularly big into helping coaching, because that gives you a very good return on your investment. So wow. Every bit helps, and thank you very much for that's an added bonus already. We're only a minute and a half in.
So Leslie, make a note of that, please. Is there a GoFundMe page or something like that we need to know of?
Yes, I can send you those details as well.
Please. Definitely. And if anyone's watching tonight who would like to donate towards that charity, please do so. Don't donate to YouTube, because they take money off me. So donate it straight to the charity so they get the full whack. So thank you very much for anyone who does that. So Roger, I want to get to know you a little bit. Obviously, you're the voice behind a lot of the football that I watched highlights on ITV. So it's a thrill to have you on the channel and doing this. So first of all, what got yourself into television and into media?
I'm not sure if it was media in those days. I went to university, 1970 to 1973. Obviously, I'm not a Geordie.
Don't tell us. Don't say it.
Brought up in no, I'm not a Macam either. Don't panic. Born in Stratford, brought up in Dagenham. Went to university in Leicester. Did an English degree. Went to work on my local newspapers, which were the Dagenham Post group, And then after 2.5 years, there was a completely random advert in the UK Press Gazette, which is like the trade paper, asking for they said it was a trainee sports reporter. And I was a news reporter, having done my 2.5 years in dentures. So I was qualified, I wasn't a trainee, but I hadn't done television before. And it was a chance to get into working with sport. I was a news reporter, which I really enjoyed, and learned a lot, learned my trade as a journalist, I like to think. I was covering football at a weekend, all the top teams I did around the area. Rainham Town, Romford, Ilford, Weymouth, Romford 0, Weymouth 0 was the first game I ever covered. Hornchurch, Barking, all those non-league teams, of which there was a huge amount, which is why I felt an affinity with Newcastle Benfield and was very happy to be helping them, because I've always liked non-league football. And although it was nowhere near as good then as it is now. And ridiculously, I got the job. God knows how. So protracted. I didn't get it. And then I met the guy they did give it to, and the money was so crap that he turned it down. And even I took a cut of money to come to the Northeast. And I'd only ever been here once. Mate from university, he was a mad Mackham. He was quite sane, but he was mad about Sunderland. And I came up in January the 5th, 1976. I started at Tames, knew one person in the region, had been to Middlesbrough to cover a game while I was on my training spell. Never been to St James's Park, never been to Roker Park. I would never, I got on to employing people. I would never have given myself the job. God, the others must have been shocking. But, I got the job, and 50 years January coming up, I'm still in the Northeast.
Brilliant. Look at that one from. Go on.
I'm born in the region, Geordie. I live here by choice.
I love it. Roger done the commentary on Tyne Tees on the first game my dad took me to, Kevin Keegan's debut as a player against Queen's Park Rangers. There we go. So we'll be coming to stuff like that. Ooh, Inter beating Barca 1-0 already. I've gone. 1-0 already.
Obviously, I've got it on the telly next to me.
I love it. So obviously you did a lot of non-league football. What was your favourite ground to visit at that time when you were doing the non-league stuff?
I think I got dumped with Rainham Town, who played at Derry Park. They don't exist anymore. Look, there's only one team down there for me, and you'll really laugh at this, bringing it full circle. That if I got the chance to go to Victoria Road, the San Siro Victoria Road, now known as the Chigwell Construction Stadium. Come on, any knowledge?
I've gone blank.
The Mighty Daggers.
The Mighty Daggers.
Who I was down in Essex at the weekend. My brother who lives in North Essex now, and I made a 110-mile detour to go to Solihull Moors because Dagenham and Redbridge needed to win to stay in the National League. And they went there, drew 1-1, very unpleasant scenes at the end. And we are now into National North, the South. That's the lowest level that Dagenham have been in for 25 years, having had a phenomenal climb out the Athenian League up into League One. So going to see Dagenham, but I never got a chance to report them very often. Once, I think. So I like to go to Hornchurch. We're back in their league because it was round the corner from where I lived at Upminster. And my dear old dad, I took him round so he came and watched the game while I scurried around and did a bit of reporting. But I thought that was great to be really reporting on a football match. Great. Yeah. And I got paid £4.
Which, I mean, even in them days, there's still quite a bit of money, I suppose. It's obviously not a lot now.
Not that much, no. They weren't the best players in the world.
No. But, Did you ever go to York City? Obviously, I live in York now, you see. My partner's a big York City fan. Did you ever
I went to York City
Stadium?
Yeah. In fact, we used to, when my predecessor, David Burton, was sports editor, for 2 or 3 years before I took over as sports editor, then head of sport in 1990. Then we used to sponsor the match ball every season, just so that me, David, and a lad called Chris could go down there, watch an evening game, and go and have a curry on the way back. Yeah, present was a good crowd. York City, they should be a third division team. What the hell they're doing? Yeah, well, they're going to be with a bit of luck. With a bit of luck, they should be a Division 2 team, but they should never be down in that. New stadium, all that.
Poor management, poor running of the club until they've sold it recently.
Yeah, same old
new ground's brilliant. I know it is, isn't it?
Same old story. Every club you look at, we're going to talk about a lot of poor management, poor ground, poor everything.
We sure are. I'm really looking forward to getting to that side. But a little bit more about yourself, first of all. Who was your favourite person to interview?
Oh, when I was at that level, well, I mean, I wasn't interviewing footballers. Really.
Well, just in general. Just in general.
Well, in general, I had a series of interviews. I interviewed basically the regional commander, a guy called Peter Nevens, and he ended up become deputy chief constable of the Met, and did this piece on him. And he rang me and sort of said, "Oh, so I thought that was really good. I liked it. There's my direct line. If you need to know anything, you call me direct." That was all right. And I thought, blimey, if I'd have been a news reporter on the Evening Standard and I'd go, "Oh, Peter Nevens, I know him. Hi, Rog, how are you?" I thought, I had 2 or 3 good contacts. I used to do the industrial page, and I used to know all these, had the phone numbers, all these works conveners at Ford's, who all went on to become major, union officials in the trade union world. So it's just the same that if you've, footballers that you meet when you're growing up, as it were, working with people when you're a local newspaper reporter, and the guy who's still watching it with no sound, I suggest that's probably the best way. Who then become as useful contacts. So I went and spoke when I knew I was getting the job up here, and I got a job to go and do something at some event, and Dickie Davis was doing it, as in World of Sport. Right. Dickie Davis.
Yes, Dickie Davis. I know him very well. Yeah.
I went over and introduced myself to Dickie Davis. So when he was introducing me to do the full-time reports into World of Sport at about 1980, I thought, I wonder if he remembers me from the top of Harrison Gibson's in Ilford.
Brilliant. Well, you'll never guess who we have on our channel sometimes when we do a Premier League show. Thinking of World of Sport, thinking of Granada TV.
Elton Wellesby, you're going to say.
There you go. So he's been on a few times.
I nearly finished his book. Because
I'm halfway through it as well.
Elton was a sort of peer of mine. And he's also called Roger, but I quite like being called Roger, but he ditched it. And he was a good lad, and we got on well. He did network-wise, he did better than me, but I'm looking forward to reading the last chapters, because he sort of the trouble with television, and when he got to that end, that when you go out of fashion, you go right out of fashion. And then when regional television stopped, he did, like many of us, you had to reinvent your own career, which I had to do at about 2008, which I got through 10 years or so. But talk about that if you want. But I got on, if you're doing the personal bit, when I left Tyne Tees, I got into
go for it.
My own little media company, Box to Box Media. And not that I was ever a box-to-box midfielder, I was more of a club fullback. And I was still, obviously, always, all through my career, I had freelance work, working for ITV and anybody else who'd pay me. And then I was did quite a bit of Setanta Sports. I did a couple of things for Sky. I wasn't really a Sky sort of person. And they didn't really want me. I did do because a couple of people said, "Well, you should use Roger, you should use Roger," all that. And I did, but no, I wasn't for them. That was bleeding obvious. I worked for various other. I worked for Brendan Foster's media company for a while after Tyne Tees, while I was still doing Soccer Night, which you may remember.
Yes.
And and then I got into doing other sports, and I got, believe it or not, I got into commentating on diving by accident because somebody rang me up in 2009 and said,
Wait a minute. There's plenty of diving in football. So why did you?
No. I'm talking Tom Daly. In fact, Tom Daly's first World Championship, the World Feed, when he won it as a 14-year-old, I was the commentator.
No way.
I got into doing that, and that was brilliant for me, and I really enjoyed it. Different sport, very exciting. Had to learn what I was doing. I was all right by the end.
Well, there's the big question. What was it like learning a new sport? Yeah.
Sorry?
What was it like? What was it like learning a new sport? Because diving, you've got to know all the twists and turns and
they're all written
choreography
down,
side of it.
They come up on your info feed. So that's not so bad. But I did have to learn a bit about it. But I tried. The thing with doing any sport, and over the career, I commentated on ice hockey and basketball and all those other things. Team sports, they're all, what a great goal that was, and all of that, and what have you. But the individual sports are very different, and it's also one of those sports that goes to silent, and then boom, it goes up. I really enjoyed it. Really got into it. It's a great show. Certainly, the 10 meters, the platform diving is really exciting. And I also got into doing the high diving, the 28 meter stuff, which like the cliff diving, but brought into the main body of FINA, the governing body for sport, World Aquatics, as it's now known. So but I went to did 6 World Championships. What great trips they were! Shanghai, Barcelona, Budapest, Kazan, Gwangju in South Korea. So went to London 2012, went to Rio, worked for Olympic Broadcasting, went to the Winter Olympics, about which obviously I know absolutely rock all, but I was doing a production job there. So Youth Olympic Games in Nanjing. So I had a 10-year spell doing other stuff, and I was also doing football when I could, radio reporting for Today FN in the Republic of Ireland. So look, I was lucky. I managed to have a life after Tyne Tees, and covering games in this region, of course, whenever I could. So
wow,
plenty people had more famous and impressive careers than I did, but I had a great time, and I think I did all right. So
pretty impressive from where I'm sitting, considering I make chocolate.
Hey, well, yours is a job of life importance. Mine's just an embellishment. Yeah.
Oh, you enjoyed it though. It sounds like you went everywhere, which is amazing.
Well, I had a great time. And I did I did documentaries with Steve Cram. The only book I wrote was about was Steve Cram. Make even less money on that than reporting for Today FM. So I had a really good time, and I loved every minute of it.
Brilliant. Last question on your side of things. If you could give anyone any advice to a younger Rog who's looking to get into what you do, what would you say to them?
Well, I'd say it's really difficult now. There are a lot of very capable people. The job was totally different when I first started. You've got to be persistent. Obviously, now I'm into really dangerous grounds. There has been a lot of necessary gender rebalancing. So it's very hard. There are not many blokes getting pitchside reporter jobs and that, because there are a lot of extremely capable girls getting a chance, which didn't happen before. And I'm sure that's helping broaden the game, etc., etc. But the practicalities are, and you'll get all, older reporters and broadcasters say, well, it's very difficult to get a chance. The answer to most things like that is work hard and, prepare, enthusiasm, try and learn to speak the language properly. That helps. Persistence, enthusiasm. I do like enthusiasm. If you don't love the game, You shouldn't be doing it. I was just going to tot up that there used to be some reporters who would say, I'll tell you what, when I'm retired, the last place you'll catch me on a Saturday afternoon is at football. I'm like,
Right.
well, where do you want to be? Sainsbury's? You know, or in my case, Asda.
L9.
So you've got to be enthusiastic. I mean, I think I'm up to, I should just get over the 55, 56 games this season. I'll probably go to with non-league games and other games. So
Brilliant.
I've had season tickets in Newcastle for 30 years, which my son and daughter and family have used, and I used. I'm on level 7 in the cheap seats.
Best level.
But I'll tell you what, I don't want to be behind the goal. I don't like watching it from behind the goal particularly.
Yeah, nor do I.
I am feeling my age a bit after the 124 steps, whatever it is. But
it is a long time up.
I don't have a drink when I get to the top because the beer's rubbish, and I'm not used to drinking before a game. Am I supposed to answer these when they pop up?
No, I was just, I like putting them up and see if we can catch it in or not. But yeah, you might as well go for it. Where your favourite ground?
Where's my favourite ground? The ones that worked out well, you know, the old Wembley was pretty good. It was awful, but it was Wembley. The last football report I did before I sort of retired and COVID and all the rest of it was at the new Anfield. That's a bit of a ground as well. But I suppose I'd better say the Emirates, hadn't I, really? If we're obviously keeping St James's Park out of it. It wouldn't have been the James's Park if you want to. Or Ayresome Park or Roker Park or whatever. I've done a bit of I'd like to be a bit of I'm one of those much derided football tourists. So I've gone abroad a few times this year, and I've been to Leverkusen, Dusseldorf. I went to Benfica, the proper Stadium of Light. What a ground that is! So I do love a ground. San Siro was wow. That's something else.
It's getting knocked down, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, no, they're supposedly, you know, Shearer scores in the San Siro. You know, it was me. I don't know whether I said it or somebody did, but I was there for that one, the 2-2.
Oh wow! Yeah, 2-2. Shearer scored twice. Yeah. I remember it very, very well.
I love going to grounds. I do. I love going to different grounds. You know, I'm just a bit of a sad bastard. You know, when it comes to football,
you're not. Hey, tell you what, there's nothing wrong with doing that. Nothing wrong with doing that at all. You should be recording it all and doing little videos and things like that.
Oh no!
Create yourself a YouTube account. You'll have loads of people following you doing stuff like that.
People have seen and heard enough of me on television over the years, so give them and me a rest.
I like it. Right, let's move on to the Newcastle stuff. That's what everyone wants to hear as well. Obviously, KK, the player. Obviously, we're very early in your career. I'm guessing on Tyneside by the sounds of things. 1976, you said you started, so 5 years.
1976. Within 18 months, I was presenting Shoot, and then I got booted off it for not being a Geordie, which was a bit harsh, really. You know, I love that. Shearer's turned into a good commentator, I think, or co-commentator. So I was the commentator by 1982. 1979, I did my first game because I got booted off and had such a strop about it that they said to give me a chance of doing the commentary as a just to keep me quiet. And we had Ken Wostenholm at the time, who was coming up and doing shifts, and you know, iconic guy. The Bell's Whiskey Manager of the Month, he should be. Commentator of the Month. But they wanted somebody regular who knew the teams, was a bit more involved. So I've been commentating since March 79. So August 82, when he arrived, and I remember 10 days before, we were sitting in the office, feet on the desk, thinking, God, blimey, this is a boring season ahead. I'm thinking, if I'm right, that I've got some notes because of that. Through that, I've got notes on Newcastle went back for the talking that you were referring to. I did one with Peter Beardsley recently. I think the previous The final home crowd of 81-82 season was against Wrexham, was 9,447. So
Jesus.
for all the, don't know, for all the Geordies who weren't born then and think that the scene that you've got behind your shoulder is what Newcastle has always been like. Oh no, it hasn't.
Oh no, it's not even close.
I still loved it, but Newcastle was a nothing team in the second division, going nowhere, ruined off the ball, off the pitch by boardroom strife and discontent, stuck in the past with a wooden stand that would burn down if anybody stubbed his fag out the wrong way. And I still love going, but it was another world. And then Kevin Keegan signed, and the world went crazy. And also at that time, it was when the BBC were being challenged for their elusive coverage, and there was a contract whereby they alternated seasons between the Saturday night and the Sundays, and ITV had Saturday nights. So we were all doing our own program, but the Tyne Tees wasn't going to do a program all the time. We were it was still regional then. So sorry, that was when we came back as a manager. We were on to doing that. But when we were all still doing our own coverage, so we weren't going to do a program that first weekend. So our outside broadcast unit was covering Gosford Park races. So we had to hire in a unit, which the late George Taylor, who was the boss then, hated spending money. So even though he spent a lot of years working for the club, he was a Sunderland fan. So we suddenly were scrambling around, and On the Ball came from St James's Park, with Brian Moore and coming up there and doing stuff. So the world totally changed. And our game, I was first up, around the network. Everybody's first game was, they said, well, we'll be having so-and-so. But first, Brian Moore, inevitably, big match revisited. But first we go to St James's Park for the game all Tynesides waiting for. Pictures come from Tyne Tees Television, and your commentator is and the late great Brian Moore, my TV hero, and a total gent, and everything changed. The world changed. Newcastle's world changed. Arguably, Kevin went on to become, I would say, and I chucked this one to John Gibson once, who I know it's been a guest of yours.
Yes, yeah.
And who is the most not the best, who is the most influential figure in the history of Newcastle United? Oh, that's a good one, he said.
It's a good question.
He mentioned, something like Stan Seymour,
Jackie Milburn.
Well, Milburn but I said the most influential figure, and I said Kevin Keegan, and he went, big call. I said the player, the manager, the transformation of Tyneside that he played a role in. We'll get on that in the second series. I said I thought when he came, he changed the world. Arthur and the players around him, and Terry Mack as the player, and I was looking at the players he had with him. Kenny Wharton, you were talking about. Chris Waddle had come in as well. Ray Varady, Sunderland, good centre half as well. Kevin Carr in goal till he walked into a plate glass and became a copper in Morpeth. David McCreary, what a good little holding midfielder he was. Tough little tackler. And everything changed. And in that talking we did with Chris Waddle, he said that other players, Chris himself admitted that he was intimidated by having Kevin Keegan around, and it took them a while to come to terms with playing with him.
And obviously Peter Beardsley came from Vancouver Whitecaps, didn't he? Which was just incredible.
And skinny looking little winnet of a bloke like that. What was he all about? And he was a genius. So that was at the start of the next the 83-84 season. So it took them 2 seasons to get up, but suddenly Newcastle were different, and they went from 9,000 against Wrexham to 36,000, I think it was, for the 36,185 ITV did have Saturday nights there. I've got a note here. And Keegan, of course, inevitably scored. And thankfully, I didn't mess it up.
It also gave us a great scene on Afridis Pet as well, didn't it? If you watched that TV series with Oz.
Yeah, I did watch. So
we've got to go home, Dennis. We've got to go home. Why? Keegan signed.
Amazing. I don't know. It was a sliding doors moment for the club, and he was great to deal with. And it was also the link up with the brewery, and it was really at the forefront of those sort of commercial roles for players being an influence. And he couldn't half play still. And the one thing about Kevin, that Kevin likes his wedge in terms of financially, but boy, you get it all.
Yeah,
you get the lot. He doesn't mess about, no half measures.
That was something Waddle said, wasn't it, on the Benfield night? He said like watching him train, the way that he would drag the team from being lazy to try and get near his standard, but people still couldn't get to his standard because he was so far ahead.
Yeah, I mean his stats for 49 goals between Keegan Varady and Waddle, 21 goals for Kevin and 21 for Ray Varady, and but they didn't quite get up. Well, 2-0 Inter.
Yeah, 2-0 Inter. Barca are on the way out. Crazy. I never saw that coming, to be honest with you.
Well, that's all right. I'm not bothered who Arsenal play in the final.
I just like to see a good game of football, don't we? So you mentioned Kevin Keegan as a person as well was easy to deal with. What was your best memory of interviewing him or bumping into him?
Well, we had a far more when he came back as a manager then, because we had quite a close commercial relationship with the club. We were making all those VHSs, which are constantly being played in the back page. My mates always says, "Oh God, we're waiting to the back page. All I could hear was you rattling on." Yeah, I had to get out quick.
Great times, though.
Yeah, they were great. It was interviewing was really good because he always had loads to say, and he was very professional and always friendly. Like a lot of top players, like doesn't suffer fools. Don't take the proverbial. Don't try and be a clever sides. And he was like Shearer with that. And I only had one when he was a manager. I had one cause, not a difference to he ran me once and didn't like something. One of the staff, didn't like one of the staff, sounds terrible. One of the department, one of my reporters working for me there disagreed and said, "Look, I'm not happy with this, Roger. You need to sort that out." And I said, "Okay, I hear what you're saying." I said, "I know his side. And I can see it from why he did that or asked those questions. And I take your point, and we'll speak about it." And I said, "If you just leave it for me, and I take your point in. I hear what you're saying." And he said, "Okay, Roger, I'll leave it with you." And he must have thought it was all right, because I never had, we did find out how to judge the relationship being a commercial part of the club, and when to be the journalist reporting and when to be working which side of the line you were. We had to learn that, and he was quick to point it out. So it was fair enough. But if I'd done it again, I could have been in trouble. But you've had your chance, and I went, "Okay, we'll sort that out." Hopefully, because you've got to defend your own staff. When you're
of course you do.
The boss, you back your own staff, the reporters, and we had a chat about it. And I said, "Right, well, whatever the newsroom is saying, you do this, do that. We have to walk that line." So, I don't want you to be a patsy or anything when you're reporting, but the clubs were also in an early stage then, and I've jumped on a bit, an early stage about that, and the clubs had to learn that if you get people in to make your deal. When we first wanted to they wanted us to make a VHS for them for the season. They said, "Well, we don't want the opposition's goals on it," and we were like, "What?" Like, well, so if it's a 4-3, You're only sure there are Newcastle goals? Well, the fans don't want to watch, the other game's goals. I said, actually, they do. Even if it's just to say, "Oh, I told you he was crap. Look, that was rubbish." Or you can't tell the story of the game. I said, fans aren't.
No, you can't. No, definitely. You've got to have it all in, haven't you? That's No, I can see from the psychological point of view. It's always nice, but that's not football.
Come on, and all right, okay, I suppose you're right.
I love it.
Sorry. So, your dialogue. Then, Kevin came in. He did his 2-year stint. It took them. They came in the promotion in 3rd place, weren't they? Sheffield Wednesday, Chelsea went up ahead of them, and then they were off and running. And then we thought, great, it's going to be fantastic now.
And it all went to crap.
It all went. So Big came in, one of my favourite people I've ever met in football or life, for that matter. Yeah, it was just I got to know him much better after he left, and then he was working, and we did games together, and I did stuff with ITV with him, and he was brilliant. What a top bloke.
Well, we got rid of over time, Beardsley, Waddle, all the superstars were going
in succession, because they were great players we'd come across and produced, even if indirectly, and Gaza. And they went. Waddle went first, then Peter went, then Gaza went, and Willie had money, and Willie McFall chucked it at 3 or 4 players, and the Mark McGee's, the Mike Larnacks. Mark McGee was a good footballer, very good footballer, and that didn't actually all work, and then it all went a bit south, and then we started going, fortunately, you never asked me about what football was like when I came here at Newcastle in 1976. I came in the middle of Gordon Lee, God Almighty. When you start with him to interview as a manager, stream of consciousness, and he'd ask you, something. Well, I think in the first case that the Newcastle United were a very good club, and you're thinking, is there an end to this sentence? In my immediate lifetime, and it was. God knows what he was on about. And Bill McGarry, who I used to play squash with occasionally, he used to ring up because David Burton was county champion, and I hacked around playing squash. And he said, "Don't get that big brown one." He says, "Get the little lad," because David Burton would have kicked his ass, and Bill McGarry didn't like that. It was too vain. So he said, "Get me out and beat me," because he was a bit better than me. I was. They
never do like getting beat, do they?
No, I think it was particularly so. You're getting a picture now, in a rounding fashion of what the club was like. Keegan came up, and then it was in the 1st division, and then things go wrong. We lost key players, lost key talent, and all the churn off the pitch. What was happening in the boardroom? One of my philosophies on football: you never, ever, ever get a successful team comes out of a boardroom and club shambles. It does not happen. Just because your boardroom's fantastic and the club's brilliantly run does not mean you will win. But I think the corollary is completely true. You have to be sorted off the pitch, or else it won't happen.
We've got lots of examples of that, haven't we?
So there was the background was finally going on over that period. I mean, we had Jim Smith came in, who was a top bloke. Bill McGarry nearly got them up actually when he was manager, but Jim Smith was an excellent guy, and he nearly got them up as well. I really liked him, proper football person, very funny, and they sort of ebbed and flowed a bit. And then Ozzy came in, and I was, oh God, blimey, he's lovely bloke and all that. And meanwhile, the real important changes off the pitch, the Magpie group became very destructive, and then John Hall came in. Gordon McKeague took over. Gordon McKeague, hey, the first Newcastle United chairman to ring me back. Really? You bring up McKeague and Co. on Gosforth High Street and say, speak to Mr. McKeague and the chairman. It's Roger Tames here at Time Tees. And anyway, yes, yes, Roger. Okay, I'll make a number. I'll give you the number. and I'll ask him to ring you back. And you're thinking, oh, right, yeah. And then, in the afternoon, Roger, Gordon McKee here, Chairman, Newcastle United. Well, thank you so much for bringing me back. No problem. What can I do for you? As he was like, and whatever. He would talk to us. So he was a gent, and he could be very funny. And fair play. I know he wasn't the fans' favourite at the time, but he was from a certain background. But he was a decent man. Rest his soul and all of that. And judges you find when you're working with people, he was all right. But then the John Hall era arrived. We got rid of all the magpie, the nonsense, the infighting, and all of that. Then, like, the stage was reset.
Yeah, it's like the sea parting.
They were down in the second division, and then suddenly we get the second coming.
Keegan, the manager. So I was very, very fortunate. My dad got us season tickets when Osjordilis was the manager, and obviously I had to put up with a bit of that. But I think it was about 3 months into us having our tickets, Kevin Keegan came through the door. It was like my dad knew something was happening. Obviously there was probably a lot of talk going around the town and all that sort of stuff. I was only a wee little nipper at 8. So
we didn't have a clue.
Yeah. Well, he had a sixth sense, so he just literally he loved Newcastle, and that's why I do now as well. It's his fault. Yeah. And then obviously Keegan comes in, and my dad says, "You've got no idea what's going to happen," and it was just incredible. But when you heard the news, obviously you've got to prepare yourself for interviews and stuff like that. What was that day like when it broke? And like obviously everyone's waiting to hear from you guys, really, aren't we?
Well, earlier when you're Tyne Tees, then I was head of sport at Tyne Tees, and we were doing programs. And the first thing you've got to do is service the news program. North East Tonight. Or whatever it was North East Tonight, I think, or was it Northern Life? It might even have been, and service the news. So it was a bit of an all hands on deck type thing. So you're as excited as we were as excited as the fans were, and then I think we all knew what it was, how exciting it was going to be. But first of all, I had to stop them falling into the third division.
Yes, of course.
And we ended up with I think they won the first home game. David Kelly, what a player he was!
I love David Kelly.
And then they Leicester, who seemed to have a strange relationship with Newcastle at that time, and then they went down there and got the result they needed. Mainly Steve Walsh, their centre back, he seemed to be knocking them in at both ends. Well, I remember, and they stayed up. And I don't think anybody ever expected him to get such a bandwagon going. And him and John Hall were an amazing partnership. John Hall had a philosophy, was right, so you're setting up a YouTube channel, you tell me what we want, what you need, and you just say, I need this, I need that, and you're going, right, okay, there it all is. Now it's down to you. You'll have no excuse if it goes wrong.
The dream chairman, that, isn't it?
Well, yeah, until they fell out and he nearly walked.
Yeah, that happened a couple of times, didn't it?
Yeah. So that partnership, the ground started to change. Everything was we'd already built the Milburn stand, but the bloody roof stopped halfway round, and everybody got soaked at the front. Still get soaked to the front down the press box. So I don't miss that now. I'm on level 7. At least I'm dry when it's chucking it down. So it was. We started off on a spectacular journey that even with Kevin, because he disappeared off the scene, he was out playing golf in Marbella, and and suddenly he walks back in, and it was the second coming, it was the Messiah, and he bought great players, and it was incredibly exciting.
And he handled the sales of other players so well, because every time you talk to all the ex-players who were under Keegan, they never got a bad word to say about him, because he was just so good at handling players, wasn't he?
yeah, it was his personal relationships with it. That he could. He was a judge of a footballer. He knew what he wanted from them. You know, they never. I know Peter Beardsley very well. He said they trained, but they just played football. They did some stuff, but they didn't spend an hour and a half, on free kicks, and they weren't like George Graham, who spent 2.5 hours every day drilling the back four till they could defend in the dark. It wasn't like that. He had that. That swagger about him, and he got him players like Andy Cole. We all know the players and the entertainers that he built. So I'm not going to list that because everybody of a certain age will know all that. But I've always had. Well, I just saw that one flash.
It's a good story, that one, isn't it?
His hat trick, and he was like, he was halfway down the motorway. And he got a phone call, I think, like that. It must have been early doors for the mobile phone, whatever. And he said, "I've flogged you." And he was David Kelly, your mate there, message. David Kelly, the only man ever and evermore who came off the bench in a Sunderland shirt as a substitute and got a standing ovation because they never got a chance to see him. He came on as a substitute, Newcastle, Sunderland. Everybody was there. Then the first time he touched the ball, he got absolute pelters.
Of course, that's how it should be.
Came on, because he came out and did a show for us afterwards, looking back at that, and he said he was in tears, running on because of that. He said he couldn't believe it. It was one of the best moments of his whole career, getting that round of applause off the stadium, because he was one of my favourite goal was the goal at Grimsby away. We did a live game. And we did it live, and that clinched promotion, wrapped it all up. And then they played Oxford as well. They were playing games. We were doing programs every other bloody day. Nobody had honestly, if we weren't in
Keegan Fever.
It was. Chinese. We just had to say, "Oh, not a program." I used to walk in the presentation, which is the guy who schedules programs, and he goes, "Not another football match for me, Roger." He doesn't know anything about football. Sorry about this, Howard. Howard Thompson, his name was. Sorry about that. What do you want? Well, I'll just have to clear all these programs out, I suppose. I was going to go home and get a large gin and tonic. He said, "Never mind." Okay, you win. So, around the company, we realised that for us, it was a big deal. And I'll give you my other great thought about Keegan, the manager, because so many of you, will be so proper fans like yourselves, will know all the stories and seen all the games and everything. But if you look at Newcastle and the way the city was developing post 1990, and then you had Italia 19, the boost to football. You had in Newcastle the regeneration of the quayside started with the tall ships race right at the end of the very 80s and 90s. They pulled down all the sheds. They started building along the quayside. Newcastle suddenly got this reputation. We had the new culture of people going to the Boozer to watch football live on Sky, which was a totally new experience as well. Newcastle were playing this fantastic brand of football, really exciting, often on Monday Night Football, and going there, and they became this everybody's favourite, second club,
second team, wasn't it?
Team. You had the birth of the Toon Army. You may remember, and you can Google them and see them on YouTube if they're not watching you. Then the commercials that were made with Kevin Keegan and Peter Beardsley.
Brilliant! The Adidas ones,
all the Adidas ones, all this, and I think all Newcastle then, Keegan's presence, what he did for the image and the fabric of what I describe now as our city in that 90s, and the growth of it. And the way it was perceived, and Newcastle suddenly in the top 10 party cities in the world, and it helped the whole self-image of the city, and everybody wanted to be seen in a black and white shirt. And every time we went on, the replica shirts, the shirts and the granddad collars, every time you went abroad, bloody hell, that is the plane from Newcastle with black and white shirts. You think they come to a match, invading the country. And it was you thought, oh God, I'll go the other way because I'll get pelters. They think I'm a Mackham. So I'll get some serious, you know what, here. But all that, what they did for Newcastle, the city, and its perception nationally and beyond, was absolutely prime in the rebirth or the birth of modern Newcastle upon Tyne through the early 90s and through to a very different city it is now than when I first got off the train in 1976. And I thought, bloody hell, have they got the wheel up here? It's grim.
Can you remember the running joke about the adverts as well? Do you remember the honey monster?
No, go on.
There was the running joke for ages where it was who was the last person to score at Wembley and lift the trophy for Newcastle, and everyone was like, "Oh, back in 1965," and all this. No, it was the honey monster, because they did the stupid advert with honey monster with Kevin Keegan, didn't they? And he scored a last-minute winner for Newcastle at the back post. That was a running joke for ages. That one, it was just like, oh god, like everyone at school, like all the Man United fans, Liverpool fans, had to hang around with. They were like, oh, I was just like, oh god. Just give it a rest. The only cup you'll ever see and the only goal you'll ever see scored at Wembley. I was just like, oh.
Well, actually, now that's not the case. Anyway, you carry on. You've got ground I know you want to cover, and I'm rambling on.
No, it's great. There are two things about obviously Keegan, the manager, and everyone knows most of the stories, but I want to hear it from your side of the story. Selling Andy Cole and Kevin Keegan being on those famous steps. What was it like for you? ITV must have covered that, mustn't they?
No, I was back in the office. Duncan Wood was our reporter out there. I was in the office, and there was a.
Could you believe it? Could you believe it? First of all,
no, nobody believed it. I think it was like, phone rang. This may be apocryphal. I don't know, but I'm feeling that. You'd have to ask him, and I'm thinking of whether to say this or not. But there was a sense that that I think Gibbo rang him. Anything happening, Kevin? No, it's all quiet, because they had a falling out for ages and years. Kevin could hold a grudge for England. You really hold a grudge. And he'd written a book about Kevin, and Kevin didn't want him to write the book, but anybody can write a book about permission, do you? So if you don't cooperate. So it was an unofficial book, and he didn't like that because Kevin liked to be in control of himself, not unreasonably or whatever. And he really could. If he spat his dummy, it went a long way, Kev. And there was nothing. So the story came out of Manchester rather than coming here. So it broke that way. So I think we call from either Granada or something like that. Says, is this true about Andy Cole? What about him? He's gone to Manchester United. Second word was off. So, look, I'm not in the mood for you to take the proverbial here, mate. And it was like ring the newsroom. So newsroom. Oh, it says sport here. Yeah, what do you want? You lot want? Because we're always handbagging. The story might be interesting. What Andy Cole's gone to Manchester United. I haven't got time for jokes. It's like, I'm serious. You're joking. No. Jeez. Well, okay. Think we'll have to have a rethink, chaps. The ones who went to football went, oh my God, right. What are you going to do? Well, Duncan Wood, who was our presenter, he was up there. He was the one on the steps interviewing Kevin when he came out in that unbelievable scene. Unbelievable scene when he came out. And if ever man of the people, and he's great polo neck, and talking to everybody, and that was we shot. It was our footage. We were the main people shooting that as well. And he said, "Look, trust me," and he was right. Peter will tell you that a couple of days before that he was either injured, and they were standing at the touchline watching training. He said to Pedro, "Well, look, just between you and me, Pedro." He was the Pedro. I don't call Peter Pedro. I said, I'm thinking of selling Andy Cole. What do you think? I was like, what? Don't ask me, mate. Don't pin it on me. It's a good idea. And he's like, you joke. He said, don't tell anyone, will you? No, Gaffer. I went to me. I won't go anywhere. Whatever. I think I need to shake it up or whatever he needs to do. and he sold him.
Can you imagine if Ferdinand and Cole and Beardsley got to play together, though? Wouldn't that have been a strike force? I know, obviously, we got on Shearer later, which we're going to talk
in the
about.
dressing room every week.
Yeah.
And Shearer would have won, of course, like that,
Yeah.
because he would have just chinned everybody till they got out of the way. Although people used to play with two strikers in those days.
Yeah.
Because they played 4-4-2 basically. Everybody played 4-4-2, and you had a central striker, and usually had somebody who played off. Except with Les and Alan, they both played up the front, and they both worked. It worked. And then Alan obligingly got injured, so Les had to play more. But that was typical Kevin. What a roller coaster it was. And then the other one you asked me about is the Love It.
Yeah,
that was presumably.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was. Honestly, I mean, it's in the language, isn't it?
Yeah.
When people just say it in conversation, it's like, I would love it. I would love it if whatever it would happen to be. Not just talking about football, but it's in common parlance. The players didn't know anything about it, but Kevin, he could switch on like that. I remember, in his early days that they were playing Luton Town, Lil Fucillo. Oh God, I've dragged this one out the archive for. He was the manager, and Kevin had given him somebody on loan, gone down there, and it was obviously in the second division. It was, and he come up and he got into the press conference first, and I was keeping an eye on because I was trying to catch Kev to do a post-match interview on camera with him, and I was sort of like press room out like that, and he said, "Oh well, if Keegan hadn't given me players that were already injured, and then I might have had more of a chance. But we've been a weakened team by that." And they said, "Hang on a minute," and the press was sort of saying, "So you saying that?" And he was letting his mouth run, and God knows how football clubs everything comes to them. It wasn't on a feed or anything, and he came out and he said, "Roger, what's he been saying in there?" I said, "Well, look," I said, "I'm not telling tales out of school." Press conference. He's basically saying that when you to summarize, when you lent him whoever the hell it was down there, that you knew he was injured and you basically duffed him off with an injured player, and that's really screwed him up a bit. And I said, the fact you turned him over 3-0 or 2-0, it's not, he hasn't quite addressed that matter to me. And he's saying what? He's saying that. I said, well, that's the video. That isn't a verbatim quote, but trust me, that's the drift of what he's saying. He said, right. He said, can you give me 5 minutes? I'll do the interview. I will do your interview afterwards. But he came out and he was like, I want a word with you. And I was like, oh. I went back in the press room, and some of the Mondays were coming out to get another word. I said, if I was you lads, I said, I'd give it 2 or 3 minutes. He said, why? I said, he's just ripping a new one into Lil Fucillo outside for those comments about that. And I said, oh, bloody hell. I said, I'd follow it up with it, but if I was you, I wouldn't go there for the moment. It was like, and God, so he was no soft touch and all of that, which you can't afford to be a soft touch.
No, you can't be. No,
Sorry, you carry on. I know you're trying to
run.
You've got
to stay strong. No, it's fine. You've got to stay strong as a person, because if you show as a soft touch, then people will just carry on doing it, won't they? So yeah, I get that.
So Kevin was great, and then of course he shocked us all by clearing off, But if you saw the pictures, he didn't look the same person.
No, he didn't. Did he?
He looked wrecked. He looked tired. It was a tragedy they never went up. And you could say, was it buying Tino? And you've all got, was it no experience? Everybody's got
their own opinion on that, haven't they? But
what? Look back. Nobody ever remembers a team coming second as much as they remember Newcastle. Like only Newcastle could be famous for cocking it up and coming second. But that was I can now say in the DNA of the club. There was something about it. It didn't ever go quite right.
70-year hex, wasn't it?
Yeah. So there you go. Anyway,
I remember that season very, very
Trust
well.
the
And
picture page.
it still hurts now.
Yeah, it did.
But I remember Shearer signing personally, and it was via teletext. I found out. Obviously, you know, everyone loved the green button and that, and pushing it and playing a bit of Bonanza or whatever it was called on there as well. But I remember big bold letters. Alan Shearer signs for record fee, £16 million from Blackburn. Obviously, I ran out in the streets and
World
screaming,
record
trying to
fee.
find everyone. Yeah, world
World.
record fee. Yeah, and I couldn't believe it. You know, we all wanted it to happen, but we didn't, and it just came out of nowhere again. It was, you know, there was rumblings, but back in the day, there's no Twitter, there's no Insta, there's none of this where you can get on a blower to your mates and start spreading rumors around. It was literally teletext, boom, it's done.
Yeah.
So
my memories of that are very distinct memory.
Yes.
A very self-centered one as well. So massive stage, you know, all the Lisa's in had it in. It was 5,000-6,000 people in there. And anyway, they got the word that which was very good of the club. They said Tynes and local Beeb will get one-to-one interviews with him on the side of the stage. I don't know whether every national news did as well, but we got one-to-one, and quite right to be, but both local. So the local media were looked after, and so basically it was like up on the stage to one side, and because the balance of power was those days that, you know, it was like Tynes first, so it was Roger, you know, Hazel. Who was the club's PR lady at the time, I think, said, Roger, over there. I've never spoken to Alan Shearer before in my life. Anyway, I went over there and I said, oh, hello. He goes, oh, hello, Roger. I said, oh, I'm Roger Sainz from Tynes. He said, I know exactly who you are. He said, I grew up watching you, for God's sake. You know, he said, remember, I'm from Gosford, you know. And my grandson's going to the same school as him in September.
Brilliant.
And you know, shook hands with it and said, all right, you know, and did the chat with him as well. And you know, you're always, I wasn't starstruck or anything by people. You're always trying to be professional. But even so, you're still thinking, oh, you know, it always, that gives you, when you're on TV, it does give you that edge that you are meeting people who know you, even though you've not met them quite often. So, you know, but when it was the world record signing, said, "Oh, hello, Roger, I know you. You know, I know you are." You know, happy days. Step in. But some mate of mine from the Beeb like that, you know, but he can sort himself out today. You know, I've spent a long time trying to get to this position, and he was fine. He was fine, and again. I always got on with Alan extremely well, but he was another one that, like Kevin, like a lot of top footballers, you know, don't cross him, mess him about. And
I can imagine.
You know, fall out with one of my and the other reporters and said, well, that's the second time he's done that. Don't send him up again to do it like that. And I said, look, I said, there is another side. That's what he was, blah, 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 blah. I can see what he did. I can see why you're annoyed. You know, well, you know, he said, no problem with you, talk to you, Roger, or anything like that. He said, but, you know, I'm not happy about that. I said, okay, we will discuss it. You know, look, you know, if you were me, you would be defending your player. Said, so I have to defend my player to a certain extent. And I get what you say. I'll leave it. I remember saying to him distinctly, I will leave it to your sense of fair play, Alan. You know. Yeah, and he just sort of went, good luck with that. And we were all right because, you know, you're both going to be there for a time. But you know, a lot of time for Alan. A different person than he liked to portray himself, as we now see from what he's like. I do remember in his early days of doing telly, I said, you should do commentating. I said, commentating's the best job. I said, I know pouncing around the studios, all the glory shift and everything else, being on the telly and all that. I said, the ultimate reporting is being a commentator. That's the best. I
think so.
Yeah, and you know, he has done. You know, he does the England games. He's now pretty well the Beebs, I'd say, number one go-to co-coms.
Yeah, TNT. TNT like to
got
have him on his way.
Yeah, he's not. He's developed a really strong voice. He's got a strong voice, not weedy. But he's done well. So that was unbelievable time. Yeah, I mean, it was great. For somebody who's just running a small ITV company, then we didn't half have a great time around that time, because there were there was the period when ITV were covering the Football League, and for 4 seasons we did that, and in 3 of those seasons the champions of the league were Newcastle, Sunderland and Middlesbrough. So over a 30-year career I became the world's expert on promotion and relegation, if not winning major trophies.
Well,
when he's got to win a major trophy, you're in a bad way, aren't you? Bless him.
Oh, boss, we've equalised again. It's exactly what happened the other night in the Birdabao. Sorry, in the new camp. Yeah, 2-2. Alan Shearer scored twice. But that's unbelievable, because Barca were 2-0 down in the first leg as well. So it's crazy. It's just repeated itself.
Yeah.
Mental. But yeah, Shearer, I mean, probably the greatest goal scorer I've ever seen. What would you say was his best goal he's ever scored for Newcastle?
I think his favourite, because I did the Shearer the Legend DVD with him. There's a great thing about also working with Newcastle, doing all these DVDs and VHSs then, that I got to sit down, because there's no point having influence and not using it as the boss. I used to do the long one-to-ones. So at the end of the season, hour and a half with Kevin, and he said to him, "Look, mate, this is the club's video. If you want it to be good, I need you for a long time, because we're going to go through the season. I'll have it all worked out, and you need to talk us what's going on here and there." And he was brilliant at it. And so was Sir Bobby as well, in a different way. And Kenny, not so easy. So you really got the chance to do these long interviews. So you got to know players, and you got to know people much better than you would have done ordinarily. So yeah, it was all a great time. But when we did the I'm trying to remember what point was you were looking for about Shearer then. When I did
Shearer's greatest goal, you think his great? What you think his greatest goal? Yeah.
I think he liked the one which I saw the other week. There was the Leicester one, the volley and the hat trick where they came back, which is fantastic.
Yes,
where he just smashes it from just inside
from the free kick.
I think it was wasn't it on the heart, like a half volley? There was the Aston Villa one where Rob Lee hits across and he side foots it into the top corner. Very unsure.
My favourite. Yeah.
And he just gave it that
because he was knackered.
Was the Chelsea when he had the ball played.
Yeah,
but instead, because basically he ragdolled Desai, who was
all over the place. Yeah,
he bashed him into it, backed into it, got his yard or two, turned around and smashed it in the top corner.
Yeah.
I think he thought that was his best goal, because the fact that what it took, and the fact that he had to
who was it against?
Off Desai, who was one of the world's best.
Yeah.
So
it's strange because every time he's asked,
I did love that. Peter Drury was commentating on that, and on the History of Newcastle DVD, which I was privileged enough to write in the voice. That the opening montage we had, and that was the Shearer goal, and Peter Drury, who is a wordsmith in a way that I never could be at all. And he did it, and Shearer went like that, and he went special. But it was amazing.
Yeah, it's weird because when she was always asked what was your best goal, he always refers to the Everton volley, and that's because everyone loves a goal where you just smash it out with pure frustration and it flies in the top corner.
All right, okay, tell me all those Shearer tap-ins. He didn't score tap-ins. He just smashed the ball as hard as he could all the time.
I remember one tap-in.
He might have been 3 yards out, but he still bashed it as hard as he could.
No, he nearly miskicked it. You don't remember the Leicester game that you were talking about when we won 4-3 in the last? When Rob Lee crossed it to him, he almost miskicked it and it went in. It's the only time I've ever seen him do that. But for me, He was trying to smash it. But you are right, the Villa one for me, because I was in the Milburn stand and I was right behind him when Rob Lee played that ball across him, and I thought, oh, he's going to bring this down. And then when it just flew off his foot into the top corner against Peter Schmeichel, I was just like, what the hell?
Yeah, well, I think if you're at the professional footballer, it would always look, well, who was it against? Who did I, who did I get rid of? I've got a DVD and a VHS down here next to me, mate. Give us a call.
Brilliant. Well, when I was 18, that's when I first started drinking down Whitley Bay. Every time I got really drunk and I go home at 2:00 in the morning, that's the one game I'd always put on.
5-0. 5-0.
All the time.
I think I might have done the commentary for the DVD because we had to redo them all. Because if the BBC had covered it, I would have to give Tony Gubber or something, 150 quid every time we did commentary, which we're not going to go and do. God rest his soul. So I had to go and revoice the edits all the time, which meant you can have a good bit of fun on them and go really over the top.
Well, you know what's coming, don't you? So you can sort of preempt what you want to say, can't you?
Yeah. Try and keep it spontaneous, but and you got to try and keep it, by my standards, as exciting as I could be. But I remember that the Shearer goal that I think Schmeichel makes a great save from Ferdinand, whatever the order was, and then Beardsley follows him. He gets up and makes another great save from Beardsley, and then Shearer comes in and smashes it. And if you're Schmeichel, you think, come on, I've saved from Ferdinand, I've saved from Beardsley, bloody Shearer comes in and hits it. This isn't fair.
Brilliant. Shearer, of course. I remember that well. Right, we'll very quickly move on to Sir Bobby Robson, because for me, I know Kevin Keegan was the messiah in the football we played, but Bobby Robson was the people's manager, wasn't he? He was just a gent. I named my son Jacob Bobby Thomas after Sir Bobby Robson because he was just that much of it. Of course I did. I wanted to call him Bobby, but the missus went, nope, because that's a girl's boy's name. I went, the greatest man ever to come from the Northeast is called Bobby. But she'd obviously been from York. She was like, nope, not happening. I was, damn it. Middle name. Okay, you can have that. So, all I remember, the best things, whenever we played an away game, because obviously I had a season ticket, I went to the home games. When we're in the pub, when he came on the TV, you could hear a pin drop in every pub when he was speaking. And that was the kind of man he was.
Yeah. He was a fantastic man. I mean, what I like about him most was he wasn't cuddly Uncle Bobby that was a nicey bloke. He was a tough guy. Yeah. You don't handle and manage the clubs he did and be a soft touch. So when he was flying. These are obviously just my perspectives because you could ask 1,000 other people and they'll give you the other stuff on it. And I got on with him well. And I think, I did get on with him well. He thought I was all right. I wasn't an idiot. And I was of a more age. It's different, when you're 50 odd, then you get a different response from people than when you're 25. The age thing, it's just life. That is the way people respond. I was doing post-match interviews for ITV then when we had the match and all of that, the Saturday thing. So I was usually the first guy he spoke to after games for a couple of seasons or so. And it's great. And Newcastle were having a bit of a hard time. It was the season before he went. And he'd come out and he would be flying sometimes. And I remember asking him some question, what the hell it was. And your first question is very important. It sets the tone of where the interview is going to go. And he said it, and it was, I can't believe you asked me that question. You being a local boy, Roger. And I was like,
oh no.
Everybody, this guy's taking it, and everybody else like that. Yeah, but he was a tough guy. The best challenging program I was ever responsible for and presented was a program called the Black and White Night. It was a function at the Civic Centre organised by the Variety Club, and they gave him one of their hearts. It's a penalty check. Oh God, Mark Clattenburg is commentating. Thank God I've got the volume off. I think that's gonna be a pen.
It's going to be a Pentabarca as well, isn't it?
Oh, he's going to go and have a look now, whatever it is. Yes, Pentabarca. And we did this program, The Black and White Night. So it was a tribute. We got, no penalty outside the box. Definitely a foul. It was the great and the good were all gathered there for this honour. We covered the dinner at the Civic Centre, black tie affair. I did an on-stage interview with Sir Bobby and then linking it through. And we had all the packages of different stages of his career on VT, which we rolled in for the guests. Simon O'Rourke was doing the interviews with everybody. And there was like Terry Butcher talking about, Italian 90. And there was, we had a guy come over from Barcelona. We had Chilton and Alex Ferguson was there and Gary Lineker was there. Bloody hell, it was some gig to be doing presenting in front of. And we ran the program either side of news at 10, which you could do then. So it was half an hour beforehand, and then we'll be back after news at 10 with the thing of the Black and White Night. Ian Payne introduced the program. I did the on stage. Simon did the interview, so we all got a role in it. It was an amazing story, and Bobby was great. And I look back on it and I thought, wow, that was something to be involved with. And he was a great man. I crossed paths with him a few times before. One quick, when he was at Barcelona, Bobby story that when I went over there and he'd been kicked upstairs when Newcastle were playing. And it's like I took the crew out there and I thought, oh, Barcelona away, mate, I'll do that one. Sorry, why. Sorry, chaps. Rank. If you want to do that, you work here for 30 years and you can call the shots.
You earned your stripes for that one.
No, I did share it around, but I thought they all went, well, you'll be doing that one, boss. Fair enough. And had to get Sir Bobby, and I thought, oh God, how am I going to get him? Because he kept out of it all. And then he drives into the car. We had a Piles Cross in the park, and he was in the car, and I went over to there and said, "Excuse me, Bobby." I said, "Our paths have crossed before," and I said, "No, I'm Roger Tames from Times Television, and I wonder, is there any chance you might be able to spare us a couple of minutes for a quick word for our news program?" And he said, "No." He was like nodding, "Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember you. Yeah, I know you are. I know you are." And he said, "No, I don't want to get involved with it all. I don't want to get involved with it all." I said, "Look, I'm not interested in Barcelona's politics." I said, "Nor do I suspect it's the whole of the Northeast. However, I'm sure you can see it from my point of view that when Newcastle are playing Barcelona and their director of football comes from Langley Park," I said, "You do think that it would be quite a good idea if you got an interview with him as well?" "Well, yes, I can see that. I'm very sorry. I don't want to be rude, but I'm not going to do it." I said, "I'm not going to do it." I said, "Okay, I respect your decision, though." I said, "Anyway, nice to see you again. I hope things work out. Best of luck." And I thought, I'll keep my, okay, right, thank you. It drove away. Yeah. It was not going to doorstep him because it's too undignified to something like that. Anyway, so I said to the camera, "Sod that." I said, "Right, okay, let's go." And I said, "Right, I want to go and get my son I want to get my son a Figo shirt. So let's go in the club shop." So I went to the club shop, and then we're looking around, and then the cameraman's over the other side, and there's a sort of tap on the shoulder. And he's standing next to me, Bobby Robson. And I went, "Oh," and he said, "Look, I'm sorry about that." I said, "But things are a bit difficult here as well." I said, "Then difficult here. Where's your cameraman? Where's your cameraman? Is he still here? Still here?" I said, "Yeah, he's over there by the counter." I said, a fistful of stuff of kit like that. He says, "Well, I'll give you 5 minutes if you can do an interview here." I said, "Well, where do you want to do it?" I said, "Wasn't that full?" I said, "We'll do it here." And I said, I said, "Can we shoot it in here? All right." I said, "Yeah, get the mic in tight." I said, "Well, we're doing in front of this wall of Barcelona shirts." So it's like all the shirts hanging down. I said, "Look, great." So anyway, I did this chat. And then, of course, you can't shut him up once you started him. Anyway, I said, "Look, I can't." And I said, "Thanks very much." I said, "Can't tell you how much I appreciate that." I said, "I really, really And I said, everybody will be, people will be, it's the bit they'll be waiting to hear in the piece.
Yeah.
So, thank you. And he said, no, I know. He said, I said, it's the Northeast. I know. I said, good to see you. Shook hands, and he went. Heart. Man had heart.
Yeah, he did.
I don't know how much time you got. Otherwise, I'll wrap it up and tell you another story about his father. But,
well, we're getting near the end, so I don't want to keep you any longer. We've been on an hour and 20 minutes. I said an hour, so I appreciate you carrying on, to be fair.
Well, this is only flash San Pellegrino orange juice, which is hanging around from Christmas, so I'm not drinking booze here.
Brilliant. There is one more. I didn't actually send you. I sent you the list of what we're going to be doing, but I thought with all the rubbish that's online at the moment, I think it would be good to get your views on this. I find it absolutely ridiculous, and I did do a video on it, and people are like, "Why you done the video? You just highlighting it." I went, "Well, because no one." I had to back them up, and I had to get the points out of why I believe, Mr. Eddie Howe is like having a Sir Bobby Robson again. He is, what he's done for this football club from getting us from only 4 points at Christmas, getting us to 12, then Champions League football and a final. Yes, we lost that final, but then we finished 7th. And then this year, we're challenging for top 4. We've won our first domestic trophy since 1955. Yeah. And people are still, after a draw away to Brighton, who we haven't beaten since 2017 in the Championship with a Mo Diarmi fluke goal, are saying, "Oh, he's took us as far as he can." And I can't believe what I'm reading.
I would refer them to my final home crowd of the 1981-82 season with 9,447 and see where you are now with him. And is he in the great pantheon of Newcastle managers? He's won the first domestic trophy for 70 years. So he has to be. I think when he first came here, it was a bit like, big step up for you, my son. Good manager. Might work out at Burnley as well. I think if you were him and he got, because of Steve Bruce, who was a very good man, from us to deal with, judges you find, I really liked. But, and Mike Ashley, who might be a good man, I wouldn't know. He never had the courtesy to talk to anybody for 10 years. So, my grandson can't understand why I would rather go into JD Sports and pay double the money for boots rather than go into Sports Direct. He said, "Well, why wouldn't you go out in there, Grandad?" I said, I would. I don't care how cheap their golf balls are. I am not buying them from that man. It's the only little. I was not going to hand him my season ticket because I support and go to watch Newcastle United, not Mike Ashley. So I will not allow him to ruin a great pleasure of my life, which is going to watch top football, top league football most of the time, just because he's such a, and nice to see you don't particularly swear on this channel, and I'm not going to be break it. So Mike Ashley, a soulless man, completely soulless. Eddie Howe's come in and done a fantastic job. He has made players better. He's got a tune out of Jacob Murphy. My mate I go with, Gaz, and I said, I've got to stop slagging off Jacob Murphy because he's got 9 goals. And he has made himself and been made into an effective Premier League player when fundamentally I really think he's very good. But
no, I agree.
Watching this, which I probably won't be, Jacob Murphy, and it's a compliment actually, because I think that some of the times when he looked shocked when he scored, because I think he bloody is as well, but it shows you that if you give players confidence and if you give them a clear role and if you give them a running team in the team, you can get great things or really good things out of them. And he has made that, and he got Almiron out and he made that place. And a lot of that is obviously you've got to give the player credit, but the manager has done that. You've got to make players better. And I think that, how do you know he's taken him as far as you can go? This summer, and they And that will be massive. I think his problem is, and he's not the only team to get it, as we haven't discussed, but you may know that I was always an Arsenal supporter as a kid. And Arsenal got the same problem. Their first 11 is really good. Newcastle, their first 11, possibly 12, because he's got Harvey Barnes now pumped up and performing. And before I thought, you're a bit disappointing. You're classy. Poor man's Leandro Trossard. Come in, nice, classy, strike a nice ball, hit a good finish. Not sure how reliable, but he's been very good recently. So he's done that. So beyond that 12, then the drop off. And that's his problem. But how do you get 12 to 16, 17? You've got to be ruthless, and some good folks will go. You can't give every Emil Kraft a contract, but you've got to have somebody, a good pro with international experience, Mr. Kraft, who's happy to bang in. Kraft. Well, look, somebody's got to be 19th or 20th on the 25 and come in and not be rubbish when you need to bung him on for 10 minutes, and he can do that job. So if he's contented doing that and he's prepared to do that because the stage he is at life, then fair play, because somebody's got to do it. And that's fine. His bigger test will come with who they manage to recruit, because managers are always judged on who they sign. And I know that will be how much money he's given, but you can still buy crap players for a lot of money and good money players for not so much money. And how he holds that. But he has done, it is undeniable, because it's a big shiny thing standing on the once they cleared all the dust and spiders out of the trophy cabinet at James's Park. So it'll
be sitting by itself, won't it?
Well, we don't know. And also, I am delighted that an English manager is doing something.
Yeah, first one since Harry Redknapp. He was the one who won the FA Cup with Portsmouth.
Oh, blimey, old Harry, my dad's favourite player. He's a West Ham fan, my dad. And Eddie Howe has done that. He's improved the team. He's improved players. I think when Newcastle are at it and not knackered, they are a right handful as a team, I would call them. He wrecked them, and I think you're finding out that's happening to more teams because they haven't got the squads like Manchester City. That Arsenal have got a great first team, but when they get into that high level of European competition, a bit higher, and then they come back onto it, they can't handle it. They can't play with the intensity to get what they need and be playing every day and going to Bournemouth, and they can't handle it because it's so hard.
Look at Villa.
Yeah, what a great job. I really like Emery as a manager.
Yeah,
you got a really crap team at Arsenal, and he's a good manager, and they've got a lot of good players coming off their bench. A lot of good players. When McGinn and Watkins and players like that come on, you think, bloody hell, I'll have them.
Arsenal nearly did, didn't they?
Tielemans. I was thinking, get Tielemans when we were looking for midfield players. He's a class player. So, I think Eddie Howe's done a great job, and he's put himself up in. You picked out the managers, that go there, and he has got every right to do that. It will be fascinating to see what he can do.
Exactly. Free windows without a signing other than Lewis Hall, who we knew was coming in anyway. It's incredible that we're even in the top four this year and won a trophy.
I thought that they would drift off a bit, but they've come again, and he has assembled. When Joel Linton was being the world's worst signing at centre forward, before that game. John Beresford, who had been doing some stuff with Ian Payne, and evidently met him up afterwards, and he said, Les Ferdinand was up, Les was up, and he came straight up before the ball had been kicked and said, this bloke can't play up front. And he went, what? He said, the Brazilian, he said, can't play up front on his own. Shut up, Les, God's sake, don't be like that, make us miserable. We hasn't kicked a ball yet, for us. And he said, I'm telling you, he said, he can't do that. He can't play up front on his own. So and he was right. But he has turned.
He was a left forward, wasn't he? He was a left forward where he was in Germany.
But I mean, not so great at that. But boy,
Mm.
he's turned him into one of the most effective. They missed him first half
Oh, they
against
did,
Brighton.
yeah, 100%.
Big star. He holds them together and he gives that flexibility down the left-hand side. And he is still a young manager, as Ian there is just carrying it.
Yeah,
we'll
still
see
young.
how good he does. So when he first came here, and he must have thought, boy, I'm getting an incredible reception before he'd done anything.
Yeah.
He got welcomed with open arms and everybody was straight behind him and he was getting all of that. That was in a different time, in a different era, it would have been Eddie Howe.
Yeah.
God, bloody crap. Is that all we can do? To manage Newcastle. What does he know about us?
That was TalkSport, wasn't it? TalkSport said all that because there was one Newcastle fan said, I would take Eddie Howe, and then they laughed at him. And now he's laughing at them.
Well, exactly. So I think that he got, and having that platform when the fans are all behind you is absolutely massive. And so fair play to the supporters who gave him that chance and that backing to get up to speed and find out what it's all about and do it. And he must have thought, bloody hell, they're chanting my name here, I've never had this. I never expected that. He must have thought he was going to have to prove himself. Never a man has got a bigger round of applause for not being Steve Bruce. Bless Steve. That's what it was. They were so dying for someone to come in and be better.
Yeah, we were. I mean there's no way we've got 350 million to spend. But Steve Bruce, obviously we don't know him personally, but what we saw on the football field and what we heard about his training methods and things like that, that's what we didn't like. As a person, he was probably a really nice bloke behind the scenes. We've never got to meet him in person, so
every job is generational. What am I? 74 this year. So things move on. Your time is gone. Different managers with different ages come in, and the gaps to on. And all of these. You don't want to bring back that Big Sam generation, etc. The time's got even. I've got a piece from the Sunday Times which I haven't got around to reading yet. That Mourinho's gone. You've only got a certain time at the wheel in life.
Exactly.
You're at your peak, and when it's gone, it's gone. So why don't you just know what time it is and say, right, that'll do for me. Time to get out before I get completely useless.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Right. Before we go, mention your charity again that we're going to be donating some money to, so we can get some more money to you.
You can get it at sportnewcastle.org.uk. I do believe the address is. I will send you a link. I'll email it to you if I may. Yeah,
definitely. What I'll do is we get paid from YouTube around about the 25th, 26th of the month, so we'll make the £50 donation then for you.
Okay, well that's really good. I appreciate very much the spirit in which that has been given.
Good. Thank you very much. And I'll also email you a screenshot so you know I've done it. Because people don't believe things. I'm not saying you don't, but there'll be people watch this going, he never does it, he never does this, he never does that. It's just I do it every single time. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure listening to you. And they haven't, have they?
3-2 Barca, whatever.
Turned it around again.
Well, that's what makes them Barca, isn't it? And that's what if you bring it back to Newcastle, you've got to get that to be a great club. You've got to get over the line.
Yeah. And even when you're 2-0 down, you've got to turn games around.
Oh, is there an offside there? He doesn't touch it. He's not interfering with play because nobody else can do it. Keeper pass pushes it out. Mind you, what bloody decision he offered these days?
Oh God, yeah. Your toes offside these days, isn't it? It's ridiculous. The lines that are drawn.
The top teams find a way.
They do. They absolutely do. While we're waiting for that to be confirmed as a full goal, don't forget we've got our charity match coming up on the 3rd of August. We hope we believe we've got an amazing guest for that. I might have jumped the gun on it, but 3rd of August, Newcastle Benfield Football Club is where it's going to be hosted, and we're going to try and raise as much money as we can. I think we did $3,500 last year, and we're going to try and double it this year. Fingers crossed. And we'll also donate something to Newcastle Benfield for the work that they do with the kids. Obviously, you know a lot about that.
Yeah,
after being presenting the thing, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I went along to see a game. I was very, very impressed by all they were doing with the community and with the homeless and with the breakfast clubs for the kids. Excellent. That's exactly what non-league clubs should be doing, and I certainly applaud it.
Yeah, they were absolutely brilliant, and that's why we always shout them out on this channel, because we love them. Again, Roger, thank you so much. I honestly loved all the stories. We could have went on for another 3 hours quite easily talking, but obviously we can't. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on, and I hope everyone in the chat has enjoyed it. But don't forget, please donate to the charity. Go straight to the charity and donate, and we'll be doing the same at the end of the month.
Right.
So thank you very much.
My pleasure indeed. Everybody was, talking about yourself. It's my favourite subject, isn't it? The same as everybody else in life. So,
I love it.
Yeah, you're very kind to invite me, and if I can do anything to help you, you obviously all love the game, and if I can do anything to help you, you got my number, you got my email. Give me a shout, and I'll come on and ball the backside off you again another time.
Brilliant. I love it. I appreciate it. Good night.
Okay. Right, you take care. Cheers. Bye.